Hello, can you hear me? Also, goodness, that's a very wobbly camera mount. Hello. Right, I guess May I put something about this in the Discord server? There's quite a lag. Oh goodness, that really is a terrible hello. In fact, I think I'm going to mount that camera mount onto a shelf where I'm not going to knock it. Because that's really, really wobbly. And as soon as I do anything on the desk, it's going to wobble all over the place. So, let's have a go. So, apologies for all the wild camera movements. Hopefully that's a little stabler. How's the video quality? Yeah, we are quite close to the workbench here. You're going to get a lot of my hats. Let's try and lift you up just a little bit. Problem is with the swan neck, it sort of drops lower than I expected. Because as soon as you put weight on it with the camera, it's quite hefty, so it will bend a bit. Oh joy, it's done that right. Okay. Having the camera on. No, stay still. I didn't realise the swan neck was going to be this long, so. And of course the delay to what I can see, because it covers over the screen. So yes, hello everybody. I don't know if... Hello Alex, and hello Corbs also, welcome. This is my first time doing this. The camera mount is very wobbly. I apologise for that. Yeah, so hello, welcome to Linton, and you can see me, you could see presumably earlier me leaning across to the laptop to one side, just let me just adjust the camera very slightly, just so I could type to the computer on my left. And what I will be doing at some point in the near future is building a somewhat more rigid camera mount for this. But yes, so welcome to the workbench. Today I am working mainly on a Slater's kit for a horse-drawn dray. I started it a little earlier, so I have no idea whether this is in focus or not. I have no way of telling because of the delay that's going through the camera, and I can't see the camera, unlike Gary. So I'm going to assume that everything down here is in focus, and I'm afraid that's the best you're going to get. I really need a better mount for this so I can actually see what the camera's doing. So anyway, what I have been doing is I have attached the rear springs to this dray, and they have just come straight back off again in my fingers. Excellent. The joys of plastic kits sometimes. So I shall grab the plastic weld and give it a go. Yeah, the boom arm is a good idea, but I didn't have the money for it, and I don't have anywhere to put the tripod to stand it up. The upside down mat is because I've had this for a long time, and this edge of it actually has a warp. It sort of lifts up in an arch shape, so it means I can't actually build anything flat on that half of the mat. That's why it's upside down at the moment. But where were we? Right, so if I just grab my plastic welding brush of doom, I can apply a bit more for this spring here, and a little bit more over here. Oh, that streaming bug, it bites, Alex. I think it first bit when I was over visiting Gary at the Oak Hill Works, but it has well and truly bitten. So, right, so the instructions for the Slater's dray, for those who don't know, are rather excellent. The instructions are: study the assembly diagram and note which parts and in which sequence they're assembled onto the body. When the kit's ready for assembly, use mech pack with a suitable brush. That's it. And all you get is this wonderful drawing, which is not the best for identifying exactly which bit is which. Corbs, I have actually mounted this to a shelf. It was clamped to the desk, but it was wobbling all over the place when Gary was helping me set this up. So it's now clamped to a shelf. I don't know whether it's still wobbling too much, but it's not the best by way of instructions. So I'm going for what I think is expected of me, which is that I now need to attach the rear axle, which appears to be the slightly larger moulding. Also, I can just hear myself echoing through the, I don't know what to call it, the sort of sample that YouTube gives of my stream, so I can see how far delayed it is. It's delayed by about 15 seconds at the moment, so it's... if there's a delay to me replying to your messages, that's why. Which way up does this go? This goes that way up on those springs. No. Yes. Yes, it does. Okay. I've been studying that diagram for a little while, Becca. In fact, I started studying it when Alex was over at the weekend. Right, so that's definitely rests on there. Spot the plastic weld there and drop the part. Perfect. There will be a lot of that. There may be cursing of the model and me casting aspersions on the parentage of whoever designed such a kit, but in the end, hopefully we will end up with a horse-drawn dray. I may not be using the Slater's horse, which does not come as a one-piece moulding. It is 2 sides, and the 2 sides are... they don't actually match where they meet, so there's quite a bit of filling and carving to be done there. Now I've got the voice on very, very low, Gary, so that so there shouldn't be any echo, but do tell me if you can hear it. My basic thought was that I should be able to at least hear how behind I am when it comes to the stream. And this is the bit where, of course, I realise I've not got my little paint mixing pot, so I will step away. This is not going to be as professional as Gary's. It's just not. Go, my squeaky floorboards and everything. So the paint mixing pot, because I'm quite a fan of Vallejo model colour paints, which unfortunately they don't come in a pot that you can just dip your brush into, unlike Revell or Humbrol paints. They come in an eyedropper bottle, which then you need to, so it needs a good shake, which I've just done off camera, and you squeeze out a small amount onto a palette, except I don't have a palette. I have this pot which was... I just glued my paintbrush to the test jack. I have this pot which came from a delicious dessert of no known brand, because I'm not sponsored by anyone. And yes, so paintbrush. So this is being finished as a private owner dray rather than the Midland Railway one. It's being done in a sort of Oxford blue, sea blue green colour, and it will belong to... I'm not yet decided whether it will belong to one of the coal merchants or whether it will belong to just a general merchant in Linton, but it's going to get lettering on the 1mm tall sides, because I am a bit of a masochist when it comes to lettering things. I love lettering transfers as much as I swear at them. So I'm just touching in bits where the paint hadn't quite stuck. So let's see. There are some bits where the plastic is showing through, which are just getting touched in with this lovely dark greenish blue paint. In fact, this might end up being the dray for one of the shops which has already had its frontage painted in this livery, or at least in this colour. Although I've yet to come up with a name for that one either. All those wishing for shout-outs in the name of private owner wagons and other such delights, feel free to direct message me on RM Web or on various Discord servers that you might know me from. I'm going to give a shout-out to Gary here on this one. Although I won't be linking names to screen names, I won't be telling people what who's who. And obviously only if you're over 18, please don't give me your name and details if you're under 18, because I won't be putting them on the layout then. Yet again, proof that I am disorganised, incompetent, etc. I have nothing on which to dry my brush. Fortunately, the workbench is in the kitchen, because this is a very small flat. so a few moments later and I have some kitchen roll. Right, so what have we got? So we've got the rear axle now attached, and I'm ready to start doing the steering. Now, this dray can be built with the steering set straight or at any angle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to attempt, whether this will work we will see, to build the steering set at an angle as though the dray is turning a corner on the road. This should be interesting because I don't expect it to actually work. Goodness, okay. So hello to everybody who's watching. So let's see, we've got Gary, we've got Becca, we've got Alex, and we've got Mr. Corbs, and there is somebody else watching whom I don't know who that is. So hello, whoever you are. Welcome to this weird and wonderful place, which is the workbench for the Linton Model Railway on the fictional Great Southern Railway. So that is my rear axle in place. I can now cut off from the sprue the wheels for the rear axle. I've already cut off the wheels for the front axle, which are slightly smaller according to the instructions. That's about the only bit of information it gives you about which bit goes where, as it does tell you in text that the front wheels are slightly smaller. So I'm going to keep them separate over there and start assembling the front steering axle, which is... So how does this go together? So that's the base plate, and that goes... See, this is where these instructions aren't especially clear. It doesn't tell you which way up this goes, whether it goes this way up or this way up. Very much not clear. I'm going to assume it goes this way because there are two slots which seem to match up with the bars on the chassis. And so hopefully, there we go, that does actually slot quite neatly in there, and now it's just time to apply plastic weld, ruined all my nice paintwork. But it does give quite a neat join if you're careful with it, so just don't brush it around, otherwise it will lift the paint. And sometimes it will anyway, but at least all of the awkward to get to bits are done on this one. Unlike the other one which I've started work on, where I built the thing first and then realised I had to get the paintbrush in around all of the complicated undergubbins, which is awkward, shall we say. Right, so that's the rear. Has the rear axle set? Mostly set. Okay, let's see if these wheels fit. They do not. Right. It's time for my good friend Mr. Drill to come out. And also Mr. Circular File when Mr. Drill doesn't quite do the job. So. It appears there's a little bit of flash on the axle. So we'll just gently carve that off. And no, whoever it is not giving anything away. I wonder if one of those viewers is me. That's always a possibility because I am watching the stream live. Right, so... Oh goodness, that spring has just come off, so the whole axle is just floating in midair unsuspended. I'm wondering whether this plastic actually sticks particularly well with plastic weld. Everything seems to be falling apart at quite a rate, which is not the best. So we just flood those with plastic weld, and the other side as well, just to be on the safe side. Right, so let's let that set, and let's have a look at the next bit of the front steering axle while that sets, which is another circular part. It seems to be this part here, followed by the horse well, drawbars, yoke, I suppose. Followed by the springs, followed by the axle. There's an awful lot of bits that go into this. But I suppose that's what I get for buying a plastic kit. Right, so I'll take this component here off. And just tidy up the edges. Oh, I'm only showing 4 likes at the moment, so right, so I think so the instructions only show how this goes together one way up. Now I think that so that is the bottom of that part. These are the slots for the springs, right? I can see that here. And here there are slots for springs. That seems to go that way. Right, okay, so that component goes like that and needs carefully gluing. Oh goodness, that's going to be an interesting one to do. And had I realised that was how it was going together, I would probably not have put paint along this bar here. In fact, I might just sand some of that off now with a file because that's going to get in the way of the glue. And stop the glue from sticking, which is, again, rather not the point when it comes to modelling. So we've got 2 parts there. Let's trances. Thank you, Alex. Today I have learned something about horse-drawn vehicles. Those wonderful 1 horsepower biofueled locomotives, suitable for road and rail use. Right. So this, I think, is where you get to see my terrible hair dye job at the moment, where I desperately need to re-bleach my roots as my head reappears in the bottom of the frame. So, big dollop of plastic weld, get the plastic on, check for squareness. That's not square at all. Excellent. It's also not centered, but this plastic weld seems to be taking to it, so that is what I will refer to by an excellent measure, which is close enough. I can trim bits to make it look more centered. Yes, historic working farms and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, not many of those around Edinburgh as far as I can tell, so none of those for me at the moment. Right, let's put that to one side and see how that goes. So that's almost fits. That fits almost enough that I'm going to put some glue inside the hole in the wheel, and I expect that that will probably soften the plastic enough that I can push the wheel onto the axle like so. Right, okay, so that is one wheel fitted, and the other large wheel, which I'll just open out the hole in with the file a little, just to get it ready. Yes, 1 horsepower is of course the average or prolonged output of a horse. So as Gary points out, a horse can work at up to 10 horsepower, but it then needs quite a period of cooling down at 0 horsepower afterwards. Right, so we have another wheel for the rear of our dray. So you may notice I've left the tyres of the wheels unpainted. This is because once it's done, I'm going to paint them by just running a brush around them. But it's much easier to do that when they're already firmly mounted on an axle. Right, these are not perfectly vertical. There we go, that's fairly close. And in fact, that's the axle coming off the springs as well. My goodness, maybe they were right when they said use mech pack rather than plastic weld. What on earth do they mould this out of? That plastic weld isn't touching. Ah, but are you in fact like Cletus the slack-jawed yokel? And goodness, I haven't seen that episode of The Simpsons for a very long time. Right, so we've got bits and pieces of a kit which I'm assembling somewhat ineptly. So I'm going to trim these bars off that are protruding on the basis that that way I can make it look a lot neater, even if that's not strictly accurate. And I apologise also for my singing, which has just come through my speakers. That was appalling. Right, there we go. So we now have what I am reliably informed are called the chances, just hanging about. I'm hoping that this is going to focus. We shall see. The shafts. Is it traces or trances? Now, I am at a loss at this point. I do not know. So these will presumably want to be... I am probably better assembling the whole front end as a unit and then attaching it. Okay, the focus is not that bad. How's the audio? Am I cutting in and out, or am I actually fairly smooth tonight? Two springs and an axle. Right, let's see how badly wrong this can go, shall we? Let's just sand the, or file the paint off the parts of the springs, which I'm going to glue. See which end is the fixed end, which appears to be the front end on these. So I don't know if this is going to focus, almost certainly not. But one end of the spring is fixed and the other end is on a slider by the looks of things, or would be on the prototype, to allow the end to move as the spring is compressed. Excellent. This is unexpected that everything would be in focus and the audio to be audible, and for the amount of time I've put into getting this to actually do it. No, okay, I was holding the springs well out of focus and holding the pointing device off screen. So what I have here, and I'm going to hold it onto a white background so it can actually be seen, is one of the springs from the front. And to the right of the screen you can see one end has a sort of a T-shaped mount at the top, and the other end has a small roller, which I'm assuming is to allow the spring to move a little bit at the end. Right, so we've got that, a small clear section there and a small paint-free section there. This paint is coming off surprisingly easily, almost worryingly easily. So, right. So my glue... Okay, yes, that did come a little bit more in focus when I tried to hold that in front of the camera. Excellent. So this is the right-hand spring, I think. While this is upside down, I'm not quite sure on that. Let's get that in place. And vertical, please, little spring. spot of glue. Well, cement. And a spring stuck to my finger. There we go. One spring there. Spot of glue on the front spring hanger. And press it home. And knock it off the underframe component again. There we go. So let's just flood you both with plastic weld and you can stay put there while I attend to the other spring. Apologies for my voice, by the way. I've got a little bit of a cold, so I'm a bit croaky. But yeah, that spring is starting to lean inwards, so we'll just coax that back outwards. Once the axle is on, it will help to hold everything square. So another axle, well, another spring first of all, goes on there. Using the tweezers. Hopefully I won't get big glue coated fingerprints everywhere. But seemingly I won't be able to actually fit the part without using the great big Mark I human finger. 76 times too large for this job, but it will do. Okay, see you in a bit, Gary. It's been lovely to be joined by you. As to whether or not this becomes a regular occurrence, I'm not sure. It's lovely having company for modelling. Having had somebody visiting for the weekend who was also a modeller and sitting, just the pair of us modelling and chatting about what we were doing, has really reminded me of how much I enjoy doing this around people and with folk around. So thank you all for joining me this evening, this lovely Friday evening. Does anyone have any plans for the weekend? Other than watching me decimating this poor defenceless kit. Of which I am dropping components and bending components and not correctly gluing components and generally making a little bit of a mess of it, to be honest. But it's okay, because as Jake the dog says in Adventure Time, dude, sucking at something is the first step to being kind of okay at something. And I usually assume that the first time I assemble something it's not going to go properly, so I can work on that and adjust it until I'm happy with the result. Anyone who's actually watched me painting, for example, can see that I'm not very good at it, but I'm very patient at going back and correcting and fixing and correcting and fixing until it looks like what I'm wanting it to. All the lining on my locos, which is done with a brush, it's not done first time. It takes hours and hours and days, and in some cases weeks to get one curved line to look right. But it's worth the time. Right, so we have most of the undergubbins. We've got the springs, we've got the axle, we've got the steering gear. And I kind of want to leave that all to set for now, because that's all the components that come in the kit, at least for the dray. So I kind of want to just put those aside and have a look at what else I've got to build. So currently on the workbench there's a couple of projects. There is a box full of more Cambrian wagon kits because I haven't built enough of those over the last few days. There is a Hornby battery-powered Thomas carriage from one of their push-along sets where the locomotive was pushed along by a battery-powered carriage. Thank you, Alex. Much appreciated. which I've started disassembling. The wheels that it came with were sort of round tired, no flanges, and about a scale 4.5 feet, as opposed to the 3'6" that they should have been. So the carriage was very tall, but the panelling is quite nice. And it may end up becoming, I've yet to decide, it may end up becoming a Great Southern composite of some sort, or possibly even a first class carriage, to go with the Bachmann Emily Clerestory coaches, the 6-wheelers. The chassis is likely to come from a ratio 4-wheel carriage, of which I've got a couple of kits lying around. And as can be seen, it was bought for a princely sum from Harbin Hobbies, my local model shop, from their second-hand stand. This whole carriage set me back 50p, so it was decided that it's suitable for bashing for whatever purposes I choose. The underframe has some decent detail on it, but I'm probably going to chuck it because A, I can't get the weights out of it in order to chop off this huge bulbous thing, and B, it's far too tall. C, it would be a bit of a pain to fit buffers and things to the end, so I'm probably just going to go for a plastic chassis. Oh, and knock the camera from the ratio kit. I hope nobody gets seasick because it's going to be a little bit wobbly. The roof also contains the glazing, and you can see where the AA battery goes into the battery-powered Annie. But one of the corners was missing, so I have applied some filler in order to get that a little less cornerless, but it may end up being replaced with a rectangular plasticard or some brass sheet. I suspect probably the plasticard. Gosh, that filler is surprisingly hard. So yes, that roof I think is going to go up into the same location as that chassis, and I will be left with a body shell. Now this is marked as Clarabelle, but it will not remain that way for long. Welcome back, Gary. Very gently scraping the lettering off with the very edge of the blade. I did try earlier with some abrasive, and short of sanding it off, which would affect the door hinges and the detail there, because this carriage does have, it's even got the bolts holding the door hinges on modelled. It's a really rather nice thing, and it matches quite closely the overall dimensions of a Stroudley carriage, but the panelling, while similar in style, is not quite right at the ends. Good night, Alex. It's been lovely to be joined by you. And hopefully I will do some more of this in the future. I've got the setup now, so as I say, not as professional as Gary's, but it's all there, so I can just do this whenever I want. I suspect this will probably be an infrequent thing rather than a weekly or monthly or whatever. It'll probably just be an I feel like modelling, so join me. I did consider a fiberglass brush, but I tend to find they actually leave deeper gouges in the plastic than a carefully used scalpel. I mean, I'm being very light with this scalpel, and I think that after a single coat of paint, this should, any marks I leave on this should disappear. I mean, it's taking sort of 5 or 6 strokes of the knife just to get the letter off in the first place at any point that I'm doing it, so you are 400 and something miles away. I can call you professional all I like. What are you going to do about it? Come up to Scotland? Right, and as bad as all of that looks, I now need to dive into my paint box, which is above the workbench because I have many shelves up here, and find Great Southern Railway blue paint, which is Citadel Colours Cantor Blue, because I'm going to spray this with some primer once I've finished the other side. I have a little more sanding to do at this end, but by the time I've put the beading on that, I think that's going to disappear. Sorry, what you can see on this end, if the camera focuses on it, is you can see the remains of the nose job that I gave Annie, removing her face and her end windows. Sorry, Clarabelle, not Annie. And yes, so I will be applying similar beading to the other end using some plastic strip. So off with your name, Clarabelle. You will be Clarabelle no longer. I would usually prefer a rounded knife blade for this, Gary, but I don't have any at the moment, so I'm making do with what I've got. You don't expect me to be using the right tool for the job, do you? You've seen me work. It just means I need to be very, very gentle as I go. I'm very careful and make all sorts of horrible squeaking noises. I'm also using the back of the blade, not the cutting edge. Again, to avoid leaving too many marks. So, we have, and I don't know if the lighting's any good for showing this, some quite nicely modelled panelling. In fact, I'm going to attempt not to bounce the camera around too much. That really is in entirely the wrong place for me to be able to see what I'm doing, but if I shine the light at an angle, you may be able to see the panelling picked out just a little better. No, Gary, I don't expect you to use the right tool. I've also seen you working. Let's see if I can mount this onto a box so that it's a little closer to the lens. Don't know if that's going to work. There's only one way to find out. Just wait for about 10 seconds until the video comes up and I can see it. Okay, there we go. So we've got the basics of a carriage here. We've got the door ventilator, it's got the door hinges, everything's there. Maybe some grab handles, but we have a basic carriage. So this is going to get, as I say, a coating of primer, a little bit of filler at the ends, and that's that one. That's another project on the go. I tend to find when I'm modelling that I'm constantly chopping and changing between projects because it means that I can let things dry while I'm working on the next stage. So while I've been doing that, this has probably set quite a bit. There we go, yep. So that's now ready for me to fit the wheels to the front steering section and then give everything a nice coat of paint. So let's just reinforce the front of that where the axle's attached. And let's have a quick look at one of these wheels. So once again I'm going to open out that axle hole with my rat tail file. That's a slightly tight fit, which is perfect, it's just what we want. So we'll flood that with some glue, let that soften it slightly, and pop that straight onto the axle stub. Perfect. And the same again with the other wheel. Opening up the hole with the file, a spot of glue, and pressing it onto the axle stub. And making the other wheel all a little. Pop them there. And then we can have a dray, which all you can see of is the top, obviously, because you're looking straight down at my workbench, but which does actually appear to be roughly dray shaped from here. I can confirm that much. So I'm going to, again, actually this section I probably can glue on now. So let's see. If I skim the paint again off the bit that's going to get glued, which is that ring there, which lets the glue actually melt the plastic rather than just my paintwork. And stick the plastic together, which is really what we're aiming for with this, I think. I mean, I'm aiming for a finished model, not just a pile of components, but you know, I'm happy with what I can get. And sometimes a pile of components is all I'm going to get. I have had kits where that is all I've been able to make of them, is a small pile of components angrily thrown back into the box. My green paint's still a little liquid. I can just pop a bit on there, because this bit will be difficult to get to once the thing's assembled, as will all of these bits here, which I'm just going to quickly touch in with some green paint. And I think that my chat is lagging because I can see that someone is... Oh, hello Black Falcon Models, and welcome. And yes, I've just had a notification that you were you have subscribed, so thank you for the subscription. Just thin the paint down a bit with a tiny spot of water because I'm using acrylics. I will use enamels when I have to, but as a general rule for building I prefer acrylics because they're quicker to work with, they dry quicker. They may not be as hard wearing, but I'm generally not handling most of my models once they've been assembled and fitted to the layout, so... And for rolling stock, there's always varnish to take the wear for you. So, there we go, that's the basic front section. Give that a minute for the paint to dry. Then we can do the final construction. Right, so what I'm looking for is some nice dark grey paint for the wheel rims. That's freight bauxite, that's no good. That's sleeper grime, that's also not quite what I'm looking for. Actually, given the state of the roads in the Edwardian period, sleeper grime probably is what I'm looking for. the roads not exactly being tarmacked, but rather paved and then covered in the exhaust of the motive power, that being horses. I will leave the rest to your imagination. So this lovely grotty brown colour is probably actually just what I'm looking for the tyres on this. And I just want to say again, it's lovely to have all of you joining me tonight. It's honestly rather flattering that so many of you are interested enough to come and join me at the workbench on this. By which I mean, don't any of you have a life? What are you doing? It's a Friday night. Go out. Enjoy yourself. Don't come and watch some sad person modelling a horse-drawn dray. Don't you have better things to do with your Friday? How do you mean promote me? I haven't done anything. I don't get promoted. I don't need to change jobs. Quite happy down here as a minion. Thank you very much. God, promote me, honestly. What next? Management positions? Don't want that. I have to tell people what to do. Nobody's going to listen to me. This is a lovely grotty brown. Oh, and my stream appears to have frozen. I don't know whether anybody else has. I'm not sure yet whether this will become a regular thing, Christopher. At the moment I'm just trying it out and seeing how it goes. Quite enjoying the company. But I may end up doing this just as an irregular thing whenever I fancy, as opposed to doing it on a weekly or a monthly basis. I'm not sure I'm wanting to do something that sort of that shows you how, in the same way that Oak Hill channel is. It would most likely more be a see what I'm working on this week kind of thing. But if you would like to promote it, then feel free. There are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. This is one of those irregular words things, isn't it, Gary? Like, how's it go? I hold a confidential press briefing. You leak information. He, she, or they are being investigated under the Official Secrets Act. You can stick a channel link in the description. I can't even remember what my other videos are on this channel. I know I have 2 channels, so it's been quite a while since I looked through to see what's on what channel. Let's have a look, see which one this is. I can't remember, honestly. Oh, okay, yeah, that works. I've got my little terrier, my block bells, and my smoke unit test. I really should get back onto working on that at some point. Pardon me. So we have most of the bits of the dray here, and I have the sides of the dray, which require lettering. As I say, I am a masochist. Somewhere I have some 2mm lettering transfers. I may even have smaller ones. Let's see, where is my transfers box? Rattle, rattle, nudge the camera. One of the things I have discovered is that I have gathered a collection of all sorts of different transfers. So what I have on the top of my box is London and North Eastern Railway lining, which doubles very nicely as London and South Western. I have Southern Railway Maunsell Loco and Coach insignia from the HMRS because it comes with London and South Western lettering. The BR emblems are mostly for when I'm helping people at the club. Ah, here we go. British Rail Mark 1 maroon carriage lettering. Why, you may ask? Well, plain yellow lettering. Nice and easy to cut out individual letters. And put writing on the side of this this tray. The only thing is, the letters I have are limited to those within... What words have we got? We have pigeon, guard, kitchen, and private, and luggage. So as long as I can make it from the letters in those, I can have some nice 1mm lettering. Plus load 1 ton distributed. That might actually be genuinely useful for the load 10 hundredweight distributed. That will be useful for the wagon. Half a ton is probably a decent load for that. So that can go on there, and the yellow lettering will contrast nicely with the dark blue-green. So now I need to come up with a name for the shop. Now I note that from the letters in pigeon, guard, and kitchen, I can make oak, and the G can become G oak. The G from guard can become G oak. So, Mr. Oak Hill, do you fancy being the name on my dray? I could almost make it say... in fact, I could possibly spell... If I'm really in a good mood, I could spell Gareth Oak. But that really might be pushing, because I will be playing around with individual letters at this point. And these letters are very, very small. In fact, to give you an idea of just how small, we'll see if the camera actually sees these. I have a ruler on my scalpel. And this yellow line directly above, the little lines above the ruler, which you can't see, I'm going to put this transfer sheet onto a box and bring it closer to the camera so that you can see exactly what I have to work with. So the modelling lifting box appears again, and at the top right of the sheet, above the ruler on the scalpel, we have the words private, kitchen, guard, pigeon, guard, luggage, luggage. Those blurry yellow lines that you can see there. If I do that, maybe you'll be able to see them a little better. Yes, so those are approximately 1mm tall letters, individual. Never claimed to be sane, did I? Never claimed to be traditionally sane. Yeah, you can't even see... You could probably just about make out the whole words as lines. But this should be fun. So, I think it's time to give the dray another quick coat of paint on its side. It's alright, Gary, I have got some T-gauge models to finish. So I am sure that I will get used to much smaller detailing than this. I have a Great Western pannier tank for which I will have to make the W out of the 2 V's from Private, which will be a whale of a good time, I'm sure. But for some reason I keep doing these sorts of things to myself. Having just finished building 3 private owner wagons, which all need lettering as well. And might just do those on stream as well. Those being rather larger with 4 and 5mm lettering, where I can actually see what on earth I am doing. So that dray is going to sit there. I am going to get my very sharpest scalpel, which is that one. Still has a point on it. And I'm going to see if I can cut out the letter G for guard. This is a ridiculous transfer. This is an utterly ridiculous idea. Why on earth am I doing this? So, this here, on the tip of my scalpel, this here is my letter. And about as much space underneath it again. The camera's not even going to focus on that, is it? That's far too small. Right, so I'm going to plead insanity for this one, I think. I'm going to, because it's so tiny, I'm not going to put this into the water. I'm going to use a slightly unorthodox method. Because if I put this into the water, I will drop it in, I will never see it again. So I'm going to take some water and blob it over the transfer on the workbench, on the cutting mat, and let that soak it instead. Some of us certifiably, some of us less so. And because this is so small, it's probably not going to take very long to come off the backing. So I am going to put that on the model, ready to move off as soon as it does. I think that brush is rather too large. Let's go for the medium-sized brush and attempt to tease this onto the grey. This is utterly ridiculous. This is so stupidly, tinily, ridiculously small. There is no point at all streaming it, because there's no way any of you can actually see what I'm doing. And yet here I am doing it anyway, because I can. I think is the main reason. Right, so that's a G. Right, next. A-R. Ah, I can have both of those together. And chop those out of the next word down. I have no idea if you can even see that tiny little yellow dot there, which is a fully formed letter G. Perfectly legible, but just rather too small for anything useful. I think if it's all the same to you, Mr. Oak, I will probably only letter one side of this, which will be the visible side, but I'm not convinced that it is worth the effort of lettering both sides of this when I can't read it from... Oh, actually, no, I can read that G from here. Let's see, if I plonk this on the box, you can also then see all my paint wearing off as I'm handling this while I'm doing this. You can see the letter G just here. It's a silly, silly thing. So, just going to bring that up there and place that ready to move the transfer. Turn the light on a little bit. And we will have a go at moving the AR of the Gareth Oak. No, it hasn't, not, oh there it is, yep. So we can get rid of the blue transfer paper. We can swing that around and over there. We can very, very gently tease that into place, and we have GAR. And I don't know if you'll be able to see, you can probably see the lettering now if you're full screened. You can see just how much of an idiot I feel right now. Hello Alex, welcome. You've been here before. You've seen this workbench. You know the idiocy of the person who is currently sitting here trying to letter using 1mm transfers a horse-drawn dray, and who is going to look at this and go, I'm not happy with that AR, it's not quite aligned where I want it, and is going to try and move it. There we go, GAR. Let's go and find an E, shall we? Let's go for the one on the end of private, I think, because that's easy to cut out. I am lettering this dray as Gareth Oak. It's a bit of a pain, but it's also hopefully going to be visible to you. It's hopefully visible to you now. I've just finished this a moment ago. There you go, there's a nice crisp E. This is very much not what I think Mr. Model Master had in mind when he drew up these sheets, but it is, they are very useful. That is a very good point, Mr. Oak. Hydration is important, and I nearly just lost my letter E. I will take a pause and hydrate with some actual hydration fluid, some actual clear hydration fluid. Carbonated. And attempt not to spray it all over the model. And pop some water on the transfer, ready to pop it on the tray once it's ready. By observing the lettering, do you mean watching someone else do this so you don't have to? Right. Fortunately, Gareth Oak has a very short surname, and so this will not be too painful to apply, hopefully. Famous last words. Unfortunately, I appear to have chopped some of the previous letter out with that, so I need to pop that onto the cutting mat and trim that transfer even smaller. Like that. There we go. And then I have an E. If I can pick it up. For Garth Oak, otherwise. So Gareth, there we go. Slowly, slowly, yes. Lightning does have quite a lot of letters. I could do you as Gareth L. Oak, as I do have the L in luggage. Meanwhile, I'm looking at this lettering at the bottom and thinking, why on earth didn't I use this? The sleeping car and cafeteria car, which is quite large. Sorry, excuse me. Quite large lettering. It must be about 9 inches to scale, yeah. And I could use many of the letters from griddle and restaurant, but there's no Y. Oh no, there is a Y in dynamometer car. I could have done Gary Oak. But you are Gareth in the Edwardian time, I think. Unfortunately, I can't do Gary because I don't have any Y's at this size, so you're going to be Gareth for this. No, I only have the letters in private, kitchen, guard, pigeon and luggage to work with, so... Right, I need a tea. I also need a cup of tea, or I'm going to need a cup of tea, or possibly something slightly stiffer to drink after this. But, where have I got tea? There in private. I'm going to have my tea in private, apparently. So, I asked a while back if anybody was up to anything this weekend, didn't I? And I never actually got to read the replies. Let's have a look. So Alex is streaming tonight and tomorrow. This is where I have to. This is where I have to lean across the bench in order to type something whilst waiting for the water to hit or to soak through the transfer. And there we go. Because I'm not doing this professionally, I'm going to sit and reply to messages that I have received on Discord whilst I wait before picking up the transfer I've got and having a go. Right, let's see. We're using that brush. I have definitely got a bit of the letter before that, which I don't want, so I'll trim that off. And pick up the letter T by itself. Which way up is it? It's the wrong way up, so that way. You see this? This is why people use etched nameplates rather than making them themselves out of transfers, because it's just not worth the hassle. I say as I continue to do it anyway. I could, of course, have got custom transfers made for this, but would it have been as satisfying? Garrett, nearly there. Right, where are we? Hello, welcome to our 7 concurrent viewers. Goodness, I was not expecting that on a first stream. Hello, wherever you are, and welcome. Right. I'm going to need an H from kitchen to complete Gareth's name. Hello Tom, welcome, welcome. You join us as I am being incredibly masochistic and lettering out the horse-drawn dray that you can see on screen. With some very, very small lettering transfers, which I'm cutting from a sheet which was never intended for this. I'm cutting out individual letters from the lettering on a British Rail Mark 1. Things like luggage and guard and such like. And using them to make names on a dray, because I don't have any other transfers small enough. So, yes, it's a silly project. But it's being lots of fun. When I'm in the right mood for this sort of thing, it's lovely. When I'm not, it's a nightmare. So, my piece of advice for tonight, only do lettering transfers when you're really, really in the mood. Right, so let's see if we can pick up this H. Pop that on there. Nope, that's not what I want you to do, little transfer. Please come off the backing paper. That's it. Backing paper down there. Letter H not sideways. Perfect. I am a great proponent of water slide transfers because you can just keep adjusting until you're happy with them. Press fix ones have the advantage of no backing paper when the transfer is on, but I haven't on this one. I have got a wagon where I had to turn a W upside down, an end upside down to make a W. I also have one where I lost the last M on the transfer sheet and had to paint one by hand on a BR number. That's worth noting. I have discovered, actually, since getting a workbench that's mine in a flat to myself when I can do it whenever I want, my mojo for modelling has actually been quite high recently. I mean, as Alex is aware, I churned out 3 wagon kits, built and painted in as many nights. So that was fun. Hasn't made any content, not on the video on the video channel, but you have been posting, and you've definitely made some physical content because I watched you do it, Alex. So, right. Let's see. Do we have any gold paint? No, there is something I need to acquire. Right. Or I need to have a look in the big box of paints, which is too big to show on camera because it won't actually fit on the workbench. Chocolate brown, dark green, copper, maroon, dark chocolate. No brass or gold. That is a pity, because I was hoping to pick out the wheel centres, but that will apparently have to wait. Right. That's fine. The big box of paints can go down there for now. The little box of paints also has no gold in it. Okay. Sigh. Right, well, anyway, I don't know just how clearly you can see the word Gareth on my little tray. If I can move that there, then I think that the name should be fairly visible. It is completely legible here. It's actually quite nicely aligned, if I do say so myself. And I'm going to... Right. I'm going to very, very quickly put a brush load of micro set over the top, and hopefully not disturb the transfers as I do so. Right, there we go. Oh, flop. There we go. So that can sit there for a minute or two, and that will dissolve the backing of the transfer slightly, and will make it stick better. And I can leave that to set once completed. Of course, I'll attach the front wheel to the front at an angle for the steering, and we'll have a dray, or rather Gareth Oak will have a dray. So there will be, if I can get them, better photographs on our web tonight, showing off the level of my masochism for doing this sort of thing. But what I'm going to cut out next by way of transfers is the one-piece transfer that's on the sheet, which is load 10 hundredweights distributed, which is much easier to apply because it's a one-piece transfer. It's just a pity that I can barely see it, so I can't tell which one it is on the sheet. There we go. There we go, that's a much nicer transfer to work with. That's so big I can pick it up with my fingers. Much nicer. Right. That is going to go at the rear of the tray. So I'm going to place that on my cutting mat to soak. I think I'm probably going to call it quits at about 10:30, just so everybody's aware, because I've still got a couple of bits more tidying to do, and I've got a friend coming over for the weekend, so I thought I'll do a little test stream, see if it goes, and yeah, it seems to go. The camera's not perfect, but it's better than I expected. And let's have a go with this transfer. Are you ready to go onto this tray? Nope, the tray is going to take a somersault off the box. Also, I can hear the wind outside. Traditional Scottish weather. To use a local turn of phrase, it is blowing a hoolie out there. It's blowing a hoolie. It is very windy, and somehow the wheels on the back of my dray are coming off again, which to me implies that the glue is not actually sticking them at all, which is very much not what I want. So see if we can get, there we go. So we've got that transfer starting to slide. Let's pop that back onto the tray. That's it, load. 30 hundredweights distributed. Okay, that's not quite what I had seen, but that's even smaller lettering than the Gareth lettering. So I'm not surprised that I misread it on the sheet. Let's see if we can re-glue those springs while we're at this. Let's have a go. That lettering is not quite straight. That will bug me. So let's pull that up to straight and pat it dry again. That's it. Lovely. And that spring is very much all over the place. Come on, you stay there. That's it. Right, get some plastic weld on you now whilst you're here. And in the right place. Nice big drop in there, that's it. So we have some more lettering on the back, which is load 30 hundredweights, which is of course 1.5 tons in old money. There we are, you know, it's not No animal welfare people around to shout and scream about it at the moment. So we have Gareth, we have load 30 tons distributed, and I'm going to go and look for an O to start on the name, on the surname, Gareth Oak. Or are we going? No, we're going for Gareth L. Oak, weren't we? So let's take an L from the luggage. Let's add more letters. And I think the name Gareth is actually starting to stand out a little bit now, so. Gareth L. Oak. So as it happens, most of the private owner wagons and shops on this layout are going to be named either after friends with pseudonyms or real names, or after fictional characters. But yes, goodness, I need to get in there with the green paint once that's set fully. But next is another letter. Gareth L. This box is actually quite useful in that it's actually bringing things closer to my eye level as well. And I can see I've left a little bit of the previous letter, the last letter. Let's pick that back up again. Now I've trimmed that off, or rather it's fallen off. Gareth. Where's it gone? Oh, it's on the bottom of the... This is the thing with these tiny transfers, is you try and pick them up and you end up flinging them across the desk inadvertently with the tip of your paintbrush, and I think that one has just disappeared, never to be seen again. No, I don't think I'm going to find that anytime soon. Fortunately, I've got a few spares. So, another one. Yep, another L. There we go. Which L I have just dropped, but caught. I think once I've done this side, that's going to be enough lettering for tonight, because that is very, very small. And it is making my eyes hurt a little. Right, let's just take that transfer. Get that the right way around on the model. Which is like that. And there. Take the backing paper away and tease it into place with a very small brush. There is sort of, some people will use a brush for this, some people will use tweezers or a cocktail stick. I tend to use a combination of both, brush and tweezers. Tweezers for the very finest movement, where the flexing of the brush bristles has the potential to put things out of place. Gareth L. O from pigeon. and then an A from private and a K from kitchen, and then that's us. And then at some point I need to consider what I'm going to put onto the private owner wagons, which were built a few nights ago. Last weekend, in fact. Not too long ago. Oh. Okay. L-O, or possibly Oak Hill, but Oak of Oak Hill doesn't seem quite right. A brush is a little more gentle on the transfer, so it's less likely to tear it, which is why I use it for getting it most of the way into place, and then once it's 99% there, I'll use the tweezers, and that minimises the amount, the likelihood of damaging it using the tweezers. So A from God. I do like using a brush where I can. I do find it's not quite what I need for the really fine work. So, not afraid to use different tools for different parts of the same job. That O does, however, want to be slightly further to the left. That's it. And an A. That where we want it. Being very gentle with the transfers so that we don't break them or tear them or just make big chunks of them fall off, which does occasionally happen. I had a sheet of transfers from one manufacturer who will remain nameless where a single letter S, not this small, about 2 millimeters tall, 2.5 millimeters tall, broke into 5 separate parts, which I had to reassemble to form that letter S. That was very much an evening where I turned the air blue. Hello, Harry, welcome. And hello, the Ballast Man, also welcome. This is actually a Slater's Midland Railway dray. I do have a couple of dark casting drays, one of which also needs some yellow lettering. Oh dear. That will probably get some slightly larger lettering. In fact, bear with me for about 10 seconds. The dart castings dray that I have, for which the paintwork is a little messy, looks like this at the moment, and the horse to go with. And there's rather more space for the lettering at the top. I'm not quite sure if I can use the largest lettering on this, possibly, although it's a slightly different shade of yellow. So yes, for a size comparison, we've got the 2 drays and the horse. The Slater's horse is currently hiding in 2 components here, which I should probably glue together so that I can fill and sand them. And yes, we've got some bits. The os has not yet got a name. I was thinking something like Richard, because it reminds me of someone I know very much. No, I don't know. The horses may well end up with names. But at the moment they have none. In fact, in trying to assemble the Slater's horse, I am realising how little I know about horse harnesses and how they go together. Right, thanks Becca, thanks for joining us. See you around on the Discord server, I'm sure. And thank you for joining us. It's been lovely to have you here. The Dark Castings one is a very nice model. It goes together quite nicely. It's about the same number of components as the Slater's one, but slightly less fiddly. I assembled mine with super glue. Whereas the Slater's one, obviously I'm building with plastic weld and having a bit of a time of it. So we have 2 halves of a Slater's horse. But when they go together, bits that should be together are not. These bits that, as far as I can tell, should be together are not. And there is a fair amount of flash. But in this case, it is not the saviour of the universe. So, the Dark Castings one, where I still need to finish painting the underside because I built the thing and then realised I hadn't painted it yet, which is the wrong order in which to do these things, it turns out. But the horse looks alright. So, one more letter from Mr. Gareth L. Oak and his dray, and then I can have a go at putting the horse together. So one letter K from kitchen. What I should have done is use the surname Kitching for this, which would have saved me an awful lot of playing around with individual letters. And I do know a Kitching, so I could put a Kitching on the layout. Thank you, Christopher. I'm slowly getting there with this lettering. It's been a long evening, but it's definitely looking how I hoped it would. So let's pop this letter K on, see if we can get that nicely lined up. I'm going to remind people that these letters are about 1 millimetre tall, and as such any slight misalignments are kind of fair enough, I think, at this size. Let's not lose the paintbrush. Here we go, Gareth L. Oak, and I want a couple of little tiny bits of blue-green paint just to tidy up the edges, which I have worn through with my tweezers and paintbrush, with the amount of handling here. As I say, once this is built, it will be varnished very carefully, and I won't be handling it very much. It will be firmly glued down onto the layout. There we go. Right. Gareth L. Oak, come on in, your time is up. There we go. It is now time to attach the front wheels. Which means standing the thing upright so that you can see all of the bits where the paint has worn off at the top around the rim. Right, now I'm going to do it the other way up so I can see what I'm doing here. Right, one plastic welding brush. And plonk. No, I want you going that way, yes. A nice dollop of glue there to hold the rear axle on, And we have a dray, as the Welshman said when he was going home. A dray being the Welsh word for going home. I realise that's a bit niche, sorry about that. Right, so certainly I think that could look a lot worse. I could do a much worse job on the other side. But we have some progress on the horse-drawn vehicles. They are coming together, and I'm quite happy with them. That is a very tiring approach to lettering, but it looks better than doing it by hand at that size, I think. So that's going to go onto my little photo plank, ready for photography for RM Web later. I will steal my nice horse from the Dark Castings kit for the photograph, and I will assemble the Slater's one, which is not so nice. I said it and then realised, of course, Gary, that nobody else here is likely to speak Welsh, so it was sort of a slightly lost joke. I realised that if you have to explain the joke, it's no longer funny, but it wasn't funny to start with, so... Right, so let's stick two halves of the horse together, which don't really match at all. So this horse is going to require some fairly drastic surgery before he shall be allowed, she apparently, by the looks of things, will be allowed to pull any drays. Yes, there's going to be a lot of filler on this horse. In fact, almost none of the detail on the two halves lines up. Only 3 hours on Sunday? I tend to make them all the time in general. Yep. It's so wonky it won't even stand up straight. It does come with locating pegs to glue the two halves together. They're in the wrong place. So I've got something vaguely horse-shaped, which will do. But I think that is my body telling me it is probably time to stop modelling and think about heading to bed, because I'm very tired. So I think what I will do is I will bid all of you a good night, say thank you very much for joining me. It's been lovely to have you all. And who knows, this might happen again sometime. So I will say good night to you all. Good night. And join me back on the Oak Hill Discord for further chat. Join me back on the Oak Hill Discord for further chat.